Hello, America. So in Washington D.C., there was the things they've been reporting on in the news where the people rushed the Capitol, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, individually grouped and together, themselves and the Capitol Police and what led up to them as adults since they were kids. They had the short words and revelations that our founding parents left, that other nations' founding parents left. We're in a semi-ancient trap. See, in other words, England doesn't even remember the history of English. There's complete possession of all locations, areas, states. In other words, our founding parents, the Constitution, when they make the treatments about the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, all the passions, emotion, they leave out how they had to counter extort their founders to pretend they had the integrity. Pretend, in other words, every country equally has people that will give have what is it called, courage to follow other people's orders, and then adapt for that. Where and how it counts, no one has courage to follow mandated law, and or to afford even allow someone to use a quality of fact treatment nature capable of countering that the how complete possession of the qualities of fact treatment nature were involved with that breaching method that had employed witch trial type laws against that forced with the torture and slavery against everyone, and sickly distinctly against everyone. And now this was still being sustained against and having been sustained against Native Americans. It was still having been sustained against the countries that were at the surface, like England, rather. So note how the subject is invisible but still discernible. Note how the predicate is invisible but still discernible. Note how the predicate act is invisible but still discernible. I mean, it is like each subject. So a breaching method, no one's here yet. Slow mode is on. Send a message every 3 seconds. I put that on 3 seconds between people type. I don't care. I just figured maybe that would help the YouTube thing. Maybe it likes it to show more people if it has a slower because it gives me, I don't know. Vaccines glow. Like that movie. Like what's that movie with the Shogun of Harlem? See, when I was a kid, we thought that was a good movie because the Shogun of Harlem and Bruce Leroy. And then what's that other movie? I'm just speaking. No one's here yet. That movie. We goes come out and play, yay. One of those sports teams did that to their sports team with a meme. They really got them good. It was a good one. Because that's a good movie. That was one of the best movies I ever saw on television, made for television movie. Warriors, the Warriors. It's in New York City. Crazy, this movie. It's like all these gangs. That you could hear though. The voice of, in other words, when this to understand how to speak for being syntax respond to things, we have to understand that originally and still. If our founding parents had been found out, the real ones, the ones that forced the ones we know, in other words, the real ones we know that are the real ones. James Madison, Marbury versus Madison, George Washington with the ground, had to counter extort, but still leave entrenched north and south, sickly distinctly. Look how sickly in New York right before the last battle of the Civil War. So with this method, as part of our religion, that's me and the people from New York City are doing. to pay for the things. Well, it's we're going to work for the country and we're going to work for the other countries. And I don't know how everyone broke the spirit. I didn't even realize China was having the Olympics. And I've loved China ever since Kung Fu theater. I don't know how many boxers, people who do boxing or karate or MMA, they watched. Back in the day, I remember the Kung Fu theater. The Kung Fu theater was the whole bunch of was a television series. Also, someone was here and they left. Boxings. It teaches things. But some people of America regarding the World Trade Center, there are World Trade Center attack roles since founding with the transition from ACA to RICO, for example. The syntax nature and defense of the syntax nature regarding how to counter things like criminal insidiousness, no one was capable of doing correctly. I'm not a lawyer. That we could use what is hyper evidential, that and how lawyers had roles tactically worse than criminally incompetent regarding how to respond to what was left entrenched, things like slavery. How to respond when people say, oh, founders had how to hide their roles. Of course, in the database relationships were tactically criminally for influence. If they put, okay, I don't have slaves in the database, that's the one. That's how it's set up. A breaching method, a fact-cheating nature-oriented slavery method against every single person. Now, we have to admit how sickly, distinctly, to heal it. And we can't do that if we're blaming sickly distinctly on other things, others, or on ourselves. And fake news, predicate acts, delivery system methods, and ones contained by a predicate acts delivery system method, not just criminally foreign influence, but hyper criminally foreign influence, specifically to keep countries A through Z as pseudo sophistication, needing to counter its roles with the real causes of the worst natures of and uses of all the other natures of criminal insidiousness at all locations, areas, and states. Criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments in people's voices with their fact treatments and negative treatments in collusion, time treatments, the value of the simultaneous. That is offensively being prevented. It is being measured and maintained, needs and means to, as styles of logic that can't defend themselves and afford leaders means to defend themselves, relevant to where and how precedents and statutes are increasingly commonly too, distinctly, but not distinctly. The victims are the leaders, or the people at the locations, areas, and states are the victims. Increasingly, it's differentially, but it's differentially increasingly, and that is having been employed constantly, and so specifically for where it's different, people will do that and lie about exceptions, including how the economy is there involved. Our founding parents wanted us to explain how they had to hide their actual roles, getting them to put up the phrase, the Constitution unabridged, and Marbury versus Madison. Quote, real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. End quote. That's all we need, that statue pure. Boxing is sure. So people who disbelieves, Campus Marxist rises on your thieves. So, no, in other words, together, species, body, trade, all gang, one way. So Olympics, yin yang, yin yang is about the volume. We are. Pretty sure no one's going to debate that. It's about space / existence. Per what I read. Boxing is sad. Alpha, it's about male and female. And know how male and female also can't be made without the value the parents are together, which is where and how temporary positive automatically could be each identity. Temporary positive, nature teaches, holds automatically positive to show to show in the course of its identity of volume as the hyper simultaneous. Its identity of volumes. That means the identity of simultaneous, distinct from all our other identities of simultaneous. This is greater than the omnipresent and is more finite than what is omnipresent while it is omnipresent. And next to what omniplace that was in Wethersfield, since before that omniplace was there are people involved with identity thefts and frauds. Next to that banknote, involve remote uses of identities of the law, worse than criminally incompetent. So to discern this, we have to be aware of the electrical engineering, of correlation nature, of honesty, and of facts, not used for lies, not denying exceptions, not valuing exceptions being or having been denied. So each one has lied. Manifest are little girls because when they were little girls, people were telling them to blame racism on what is equality of factory, other premises treatments, on what needs people to call that, fight about things like that, or entertain. With that breaching method, put those laws in there for. You can't entertain that logic. You can't defend yourself with that position, saying, "Oh, it's about racism." You can't defend that logic and afford simultaneously counter and afford simultaneously unaccosted the quality of fact-keeping nature needed to counter really what's behind it. Everyone fighting because the breaching method, uses of an identity theft, fraud, slander method against every single person. The colonies, before the colonies, the Republic was already a databases oriented. And it was not corrupt. How they put always passions, always that one side. Oh, debauchery of the ancients. And they show them all, gay together and things like that. Like in groups, no one does that. They at those times they're doing that to tell you to look at the past. Then till now, they're still valuing logic that self-values criminally foreign influence databases having been database relationships. Not just because someone owns someone on paper, they own every single person on paper. They have every identity, ground, location, rolls with the narratives of positive and negative treatments, of means to counter the real causes of negative value nature progressions, action natures, the crazy goddamn order, pseudo order. Those people needed to yell. Those people needed to have calm means to speak to get through this. But those laws prevent it now. Fake branches, bow. and fall. If ye part of them, then just stand down and claim them done. That's all. They find the seed. Forever's things fill timeless means with what is greater still, more fine, the active course, surging through all things along and even force, which way it goes. See, what lifts and gifts right here, or leaves, is forced away, it goes, leaf of ideas, for space nature transfer. That is decipher of what has long been contemplated by the literary scholars and nonsense. Attend the identity of the sciences. With each subject, it is invisible but still discernible, and differentially, constantly, especially critical to itself. The relevance of the law, for example, to where and how the law was fake. And so our syntax teacher needed to then and now speak about how the law was fake and how they were pretending other simultaneously to themselves and others, because they're also simultaneously delusions wrought because they came through sick campuses that took away their education, not just the Native Americans. Thank God, because there's no need to be embarrassed about it. Every single person's education was taken away from us. But guess what? You Native Americans, you helped us by helping the founding parents. Together, you guys made a counter to get us to know English, and I'll fix it now. It's done. We'll all know it. We won't forget. Boxing, get set. The species body cannot lose. We're in a semi-ancient trap, even the evidences of it, since before our founding parents were born, that torture and slavery and identity theft, fraud, slander method against our founding parents, distinctly against the Native Americans, distinctly against themselves, the Native Americans and our founding parents against themselves. Our real founding parents had to counter-extort the other founding parents, and that is self-value, being and having been worse than obfuscated. So therefore, worse than not just understood through our own people's motivations, natures, needs, and interests. No, and those with the knowledge, the quote, knowledge about it the most. Mach 6, to keep it ghost. That's that life. Return. The campus way now calls you back. Forever's way. In other words, the ancient way before sciences became criminally foreign influence people. America, world, species identity of volume, boys and girls. In our face, the archaeological evidences of Alpha and Omega. They are really, O stands for Omega inside the alphabet, 2 letters over from M. The 13th, the middle letter, mother, right next to between N and O, neutrality. Mother is a form of Omega. Mother is Omega and Alpha. Mother is Alpha and Omega. The mother and the father are Alpha and Omega. One identity is making more of itself from itself. There is cipher/decipher. Sounds of the English language have better than identity, living identity in themselves. Same way we work. You campus jerk with stolen name in each A through Z. People now must see. Many nations shared are here and there. And there are campuses and off them too. To ground. And wrong we are supposed to be shared, but now it's shared. We're bound additionally, tactically ulteriorly from how we're supposed to be. We can't help but be bound, individually grouped in species identity. Know how the group can't deal with the finite, can't handle it. Know how the species body can't, unless the species body and the individuals have the same exact plan, not some fake economies individually grouped in together that are value systems, identities, all tactically ulterior from the native one pure, industries and things right on top of water. Sons, your sons, each daughter. Every year it gets worse. Nature is demonstrating negative value nature. From here to Russia to China, people just mow their lawns and clean away. No one's looking. Oh, because the food comes from here. The worms, the whole nature's gone. Now the birds, different food source, more bugs. How many bugs a little bat eats? How easy it is to keep uses of the word of the name of the fake countries A through Z, in the sense that they're in a semi-ancient trap. Identity is not the identity of the human volume. China's identity is greater than, is more finite than the invisible but discernible alone. For example, so love you, China, and I wish you a great Olympics, even though the republics, and I apologize, in other words, for the republics Olympics, fake. It's broke. Our side, my side. I apologize for my side. Fake. I'll discipline them I'll verbally admonish them. But we all, in other words, we're in the semi-ancient trap. We should all just counter it. We should have this Olympic game. Who'll get the species to lift the best to the plan to admit all locations tactically denatured by a breaching method designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures to all locations, areas, and states, and to sustain that while methodically, effectively having sustained without anyone realize, making everyone blame other things, others, ourselves, for that what that breaching method caused. A hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise, we can call it. We can make that better than war crimes, so they can't play their nonsense, and their guys, their suits and ties and counters will fall. Boxing's the martial arts and wrestling. They fight, but by the rules, no. See, evolution's fruits and gifts and means from out of nowhere, where we are fact, cheap in nature. We're in the still since before the founding parents of each of our countries. The suburban homes, I mean, the homes that we have in the suburbs, let alone in the cities, the pathology that was forced since before their births. And they didn't have the free speech at birth. They had to hide their roles in their blood. So they had to leave in the database relationships, fake things. And then that breaching method stayed. It was too entrenched. So as I had to keep leaving, England doesn't even remember the history of England. Olympic game. A stands for alpha. O stands for omega. Say A, alphabet. The first letter of the English language. And so the sounds of Chinese language /S China's language/S, they have a better than living relationship to themselves. And it includes this part of the identity of the human body, distinctly and non-distinctly and simultaneously from how the rest of Earth's body. So we are in a semi-ancient trap that is completely syntax oriented. So this is why and how too is also evidence that a whole species body's volume, countless people, long to know, no, we like that, evolution's fruits and gifts, means away out of nowhere. The reason people don't agree, because we had the short words replaced. Not one have grace. Not one has grace. Or pace. I tell it true but long. So in other words, the male and female are two different physical bodies. Yin yang, they are one. The human body volume is one. Alpha and Omega are two different bodies. So, but they're the same. So they go together. The ancients, before criminally foreign influence sciences, difference was self. It was loved, because now you can see someone's lying, and that's fun too, because it's not for her. It shows that we're getting closer to evolution's fruits and gifts. See, not lying in that standard, that's fake systems though. And then again, further as the ground, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. Let's stand but as ourselves. The finite. And the order of the finite is in demonstration that there's an identity that's too finite, but one way. While distinctly, simultaneously, there's the order of what is active and what is progressive as our value, as our identity. As it is gone while here, while yet to come. So a Trinity is here. In Allah's name, too. The identity of the hyper simultaneous, we don't have to agree on the name. Simultaneously, we need to, too, at locations, areas, states. We need to agree or not. Doesn't mean locations, areas, and states have to agree, have to really believe in that name. I mean, no, have to really have to agree. The Quran does not say it stays that way, because the readings of the Quran stay out of sequence, but the Quran does not say. It says in sequence. In other words, you have to agree to use the name as I'm paraphrasing, but it says you have to agree to use its name, where it is the subject, as the hyper simultaneous. It's talking about when people communicate with each other, the species identity of volume. It's electrical engineering. We had other told to us regarding how to think, regarding how they believe others know how to think. Relevant to logic that can't defend itself against correlation nature, simultaneously inherent, active, progressive means at each age of fact treatment nature. This breaching method consciously, so in other words, worse than criminal incompetence in their favor, and in other words. But since they were kids, though, the adults, what they call themselves, the adults at Washington, the people that would be the police forms, schools A through Z, they should have had things they could say. Okay, this means that. This means that. And the people would understand why they're going to those levels of saying it. Oh, but then some guy, some jerk like that is going to do that for the police. Someone we have to be able to speak about when the police are good and what is bad. So they can't afford that. So they keep a certain type of victim predator afraid that they're going to get sued or things like that. And simultaneously, we're there. If you try to keep the other victims, sometimes a predator too, though. We have to, in other words, this is left in a trap. It's because the short words, in other words, and revelations. Because once we're admitting that and how they messed up in a lot of cases, leaving out the significance of a lot of simultaneous values, denied their significance offensively, while they're, like, for example, they're fishing for their own means and needs. There are countless. I'm not even police form criminal lawyer. There are countless, not military. There are countless ways a person could just make up if they wanted to. In other words, it wouldn't even need to make it up. In other words, they're supposed to let other people take care of that. The president's mark was like, hold on, I'll give you that. Did you make that net gun I told you to make? Okay, and then Trump's gonna go out and shoot the net at the people. That's what someone should have had the net. Someone should have told the people. Look at it too. It's in scale. It has that pathology, so to speak, that was involved with the torture and slavery of our, in fact, human nature, quality slavery of our founding leaders. So guess what? Simultaneously, way worse against people, specifically because that method kept it. And they had to hide their roles because the way the method kept it, if they found out someone was going to try to change it, they would sense it. Because the only natures of unity would have to be unity still sick fake. It was sophistication uses that where it's lipoaggressions from spots, pretending it's integrity, but not. That's all it needs and needed. Because then remote possession of all campuses A through Z, all homeschooled, identities of correlation nature, each age of fact, human nature, tactically taken, tactical ulterior from that native course, that pure, and has pretend other. They were backed into logic, just like the killers that they have. How was it moving? And they have all this time to talk with them. And meanwhile, the people that are saying they're innocent, in many ways, you know how they say everyone says in jail? They say that everyone's innocent. To an extent, there's proof of that. I caught them. The roles with the breaching method, being everyone. But I can show you your leaderships and yourselves in collusion. That's what's actually recorded, but you have to follow mandated law. News predicate acts are real. If we refer to them as fake news acts, they hurt us. This is the House people. They call that politics because they use the truth for lie. They do hurt each other. And they are told to do that by the identities of lawyers and including ones of the FBI. They're criminally foreign influence, simultaneously delusions wrought. You think they spoke for what black properly? What caused black with the law? What caused witch trials? They blamed it on drugs. They blame everything on drugs. That's how they had their life progressions. Then they pretend they're fighting with people about with mental doctors. Those mental doctors have been recorded with the courts and with the worst patients and criminals before they got caught, with methods and natures of organized crime, uses of Facebook too. Changes the whole readings of the statute suppressions. In fact, it shows them recorded dead cold, reading them sickly, worse than criminally foreign influence, leaving out exceptions, the exception nature. Do they have the right to speak for the economic impositions on the people of New York City, leaving out how economy had to start while still entertaining natures of business, entertaining slavery? What can't be defended in the Constitution unabridged at the same time? That's evidence. That's hyper evidential. We are not allowed to use the hyper evidential. One of the ways they do it is pretend, well, I don't see any evidence. You don't see any evidence. You guys bring your sources. Delusion's wrong. See, but that's where the short words was. Where our founding parents didn't have free speech. Everyone was enslaved, tortured, hurt, tricked, sickly but distinctly of every location. And it would maintain that being the identities of that individually grouped in together now as tactical ulterior additional identities, measurable, maintainable reactions other ways. Not just reactions, that doesn't matter. The premise is treatment, fact, treatment, nature, quality. It means that in other words, they speak about behavior though. They've been attaching people to fake words and locations. And they can't. Parents are going to go livid, but you have to understand. Forgiveness is not to give up. For example, one thing is just stay calm, but we still have to fight something. You see what I'm saying? And we can't do it without using the hyper invisible. And the hyper invisible demonstrates the languages even have an identity. Like the parts of our body have identities that also have that semi-nature relationship to the complete identity. Even the languages do. And this is relevant because it is hyper relevant because of where and how the invisible but still discernible is relevant and is hyper relevant. It is functional too, rather. I was just watching in tablet class math. He was saying, note the word fun and the word functional. Note the roots of words. Functional, the decipher of functional. Free your neutrality. That's the decipher of fun. Functional, free your neutral consciousnesses. Telling. Inherent omega's neutrality. See, omega neutrality and alpha neutrality are two and as semi-natures of the complete identity of volume that we are not just as humanity, but as its semi-nature relationship to that which is distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously ourselves. See, if we appreciate how that is, we're automatically distinctly, non-distinctly into ourselves. We are automatically, distinctly, no matter what we do, it's right. And even when it's wrong, it's going to teach us something how to do it we never fathomed, as long as we do it in an adapting way. So even the infrastructure, we should just be placing, we should be, as a species body, planning to place rocks and things like that. Working together to make networks so that are free. So we don't have to, because you know how they are with money, our countries, speaking with values, speaking with identity, speaking with uses of ground living. Forget that. Evolution science should feel like games. If we sense that it does not feel like games, and see, that's why we should begin, brother. We have to, in other words, and just by claiming the people stacking and things like that, unacceptable. How many people will be happy, will feel it coming? The evolution is increasing positive. It will change the nature of things. Now it will change. Well, instead of being all make sure you get on that because this country ain't pretty. Well, that country's that time. Well, what? Instead of okay, get the rocks together. You know what I'm saying? You guys, we're flying over. They're sending us for free. Some people want to leave. Some people want to stay. This would be even better and better everywhere everyone is. If people don't like what, because this is rat trap though. That came from some ancient towns. We have a shared enemy. Still manifest. Even if it's not maintained, it is still maintained. It's still self-value. People do it for themselves. It's self-cultivated because everyone's a victim of the short words replaced. The breaching method knew that the locations, areas, and states of everywhere the body of volume is, of the human identity of volume, we would have to use words like criminal insidiousness. Rather, criminally foreign influence. And it knew that it would maintain natures of quality of fact, nature, sense, and sensibilities that wouldn't be able to perceive and they would have to counter negative value, the real causes of negative value nature, progressions, acts, and natures, acts like predicate acts, natures like criminal and ceaseless natures, wrongdoers. Same thing, lawyers, interbranch inclusion, differentially, constantly, increasingly, criminally foreign influence. Differentially, increasingly, so everyone blaming other things, others, themselves, even when correctly. It's being screened. The breaching method. It is relevant to where and how there are some overt examples of it, like where and how fact treatments are towards what is uses of black and white. They are criminally foreign influenced and delusions wrought. But we're not being allowed to count the quality of fact treatment nature had to have that demonstrated. Offensively, they have people defending with passions and emotions counters to racism, because it's part of what they did with replacing the short words that were proper this way, which doesn't leave out from slavery the torture that was simultaneously, the identity theft, fraud, slander that was simultaneous, and the breaching method. And that came from some ancient times. It was already a pseudo-sophistication in England. The other nations, the other knave nations fighting with each other themselves. Now, not just derivatives of that ancient republic that was native pure, that used yin yang and alpha and omega simultaneously, because that's what leads. The invisible but still discernible. Thank God, because then we have the leader. It's already just manifest. It tells us best. Bach sings. It tells us things. It says or not. Sometimes it sings. It's timeless springs. Bach sings gets hot. Stays cold while hot. Not just to see the value of the warmth, but the invisible but discernible simultaneous. / hyper simultaneous. So Bach sings to the keepers of the histories who told it wrong. Boxing grows strong. Martial arts, wrestling are mad. No, because at all locations, areas, and states, criminal and citizen's natures of positive and negative treatments and collusion, identity treatments and collusion, the ancients realized they had to keep in place, ways for people to counter fake integrity of law. Title. Only been since some ancient time. Not native pure. We are native pure when right and long as form so fit cannot be that great height. But must stay our names. So who trains the species body? The species body for the Olympics. Olympics came. Since ancient times, the Republic has been told as part or parts, not whole. Alpha and Omega and Yin Yang. They go as one. Boxing is fun, be told. So we have to change the way we teach education. The predicate act of the law is named the predicate act in English, that which we have to counter relative to syntactically needing to define or discern a criminal enterprise. And so in this case, we're gonna discern countries A through Z as victims, but as victim predator reactions and reaction natures, as archetypal criminal enterprises, as identity the grounds engineering, not native pure, as criminal insidiousness nature, for the electrical engineering of the human identity of volume science. So the predicate is named the predicate in English, and the predicate act is named the predicate act in law, because not only do the sciences share an identity, but is increasingly individually grouped and together, differentially, especially critical to our subject's treatment. Since some ancient times, abridged. So the abridged Constitution with self-value being and having been abridged in America because fake integrity was painted into corners of and as fake thought, and delusions wrought, just like the overt criminal enterprises. Same logic, same counter to itself, that the breaching method forces, tricks, serpent. You guys let it go because you guys, now you're trying America. I'm talking about our own now with locations, areas, and states. I mean, we're all share here, and they exploit that. In other words, they have been preventing me writing for years now, and they've been preventing other into databases because I caught them intercities through time with what I've been telling you about, and then how they hide it because because the youngest kids could sense. If someone tells you when you're a little kid they were hurting the natives, and now you're a little kid and you know the country has strength now. They're telling you simultaneously, our country has strength. We could see cars going by. Why are they still hurting the Native Americans? Why are they still leaving those standards for Black people? Why are they still forcing it to be called Black and not logistical problems? And why are they still leaving out the benefits and the means to discern? To use that as a tool to discern fake integrity of law treatment natures. They offensively were given the breaching screen tools, means to hide, pretend other. Not just by pretending to be against racism and trying to say that's what being law is about. for example. Not just trying, but in other words, they're offensively preventing us from countering the criminal inseriousness involved with it, the functions involved with it, including them doing that. It's part of the screening of the method, which is inseparable from the answers would cause slavery. The breaching method, predicate action delivery system method, criminal insidiousness delivery system method. This propagated self-valued roles with what the breaching method knew nature would demonstrate with negative value nature progressions, action natures to all locations, areas, and they will have to defend themselves. Fact, cheap, nature oriented. And again, too, the knowing they have to use like phrases like criminally foreign influence. And they knew that individuals and groups and everyone together wouldn't be able to do that without hurting the sense and sensibilities of the other countries, hundreds of countries at once. So therefore, time impositions more than there are minutes an hour. And so a lot of that is ignored. And the whole science changes. How people more and more can't afford that which is hyper evidential. Right up front. Locations, areas, and states of criminally foreign influence. What do you blame me? Who do you blame? Archetypal, hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise. That's what we tell the people. Here and there and everywhere. We train, the species body lifts, Olympics gifts, long lost since ancient times. Control the mind. See how easy they can do? They do a thing like that. What's Fauci? They have the name Fauci. If some people then have crazy people attack Fauci's name, try to go after him or whatever. So then if anyone uses the name, they go after you. They make the people nuts in the first place. Because they have people since they were kids. Campuses A through Z, A through Z as a race. Sickly, distinctly, criminally foreign influence sciences. Defenses, self-value. Abridged constitution grounding nature. The causes of it blamed other things other than themselves wrongly. Exactly wrongly, exactly the way the breaching method wanted needs. So we have means to change, to afford reliefs of all natures, including the people who, how are we going to make our business if everyone's doing all this stuff for better than free? Because we claim the identity ground, we take it as a logistical, pretend people are in their homes. But it's like a parking lot, just like we would do if some disaster happened, we have to help the people. Instead of helping people and keep putting them into the trap, that's going to keep more needs for help instead of having more energy to cultivate and to discern where and how nature will connect its identity of relationship to itself that is greater than might and power bound, and while more finite, and while has their value. Square or round. I'll gather around. Boxing is sure. So happy Olympics world. All train. We long to beat down COVID as one body, as one game. All train. We can make countless freshwater fish, resources, deep ponds, freshwater coral that would protect the constantly food supply for the fish. Worms walk into water. No one realized, but worms walk into water, then the fish eat them. The different kind of things eat them. The crawfish eat them. It grows. No longer on its own, it grows, the rose. See, the seed with the nature, everything makes a different soil. So they come together and made the different perfect. Nature showed the way, showed the ancients how to cultivate, what causes positive value nature progressions, acts of nature's means, evolution's fruits and gifts, and means out of nowhere, including how we have to be a fact sheep in nature, including why and how we have to give individuals the means to defend ourselves, including our leaders. We have to give our leaders simultaneously, distinctly from ourselves, means to defend themselves. But we also have to force ourselves to fight, not for some punk narratives that everyone A through Z keeps fighting. We have to go for the complete same thing. We have to counter the hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise. We have to conceive our nations A through Z as criminal enterprises. Then there's transnational criminal enterprises, including private ones self-valued since founding, even though legalized. So we'll victim predators, we can't admit the plan. And then just that insidiousness that is with everybody, with their opinions like democracy. Or, the takes on democracy and autocratic are messed up. The individual finite. The individual can only. So, but that has to be towards this system now, because it doesn't entertain. So, you know what I mean? So, and that's one of the ways we can make a circuit. We could agree to do like a circuit. Some of the people will want to travel for free, and we have means, and we know people would where we have the spaces and things like that. It would be fun for the people who have no home. People that to spots people that want to get easements where there are areas where people are stacked upon, specifically to have everyone blaming other things, others themselves, even when correctly, for all those things that were progressed. It made the real cause of negative value nature progressive acts on natures, blames other things, others and ourselves. Then engineered that. It engineered roles with that. So increasingly a breaching screen to itself, completely remote possession, complete sophistication before our founding of modern countries. It was already perfected method. Complete possession over the identity of sophistication that countries are grouped to. The natural hyper sophistication will show us this better than a calculator because of how being invisible but still discernible, and hyper visible but still discernible, like tied to all parts of language. In other words, that's why when we're speaking about things, we're using this. Is what we're doing. No one's paying attention to it. No one's paying attention because everyone put all these theories and physical delusions simultaneously, being themselves. Theories can be criminally foreign influence when they're in collusion with that which is consciously, willfully, even if you're just a wrongdoer, roll with it, willfully replacing the short words and revelations in the minds of kids, and then sustaining exploitations of that, and its relevance to where and how the sciences share an identity relevant to our subject treatments, and then they want to make and effectively put like the theory of relativity. Relativity is this simultaneous, and the hyper simultaneous has a value that we need to use syntactically. So they're putting theory and making us fight. Oh, like we can, in other words, it's discernible. It's no theory. It's a volume science too. Everything is a different distinct identity of volume. Just like just all the parts of our bodies are distinct identities of volume and as the same one, though, as a semi-nature relationship to and as the same one, or as a quality of diffusion as the same one. Boxing is fun, or once begun. Boxing to teach us things, to move our souls. It guides to move our hearts. Licia Valdez now rolls. Instead of staying here, our value goes. So about the Capitol, when they say, oh, but did you see that? You see what happened? And then they're trying to make, okay, we're going to decide it in court. They're forcing a quality of fact, human nature, that is self-valuing itself, making and having made criminal and ceaseless natures of positive and of negative treatments and of identity treatments and of names treatments, locations, values treatments that can't defend themselves and afford simultaneously discern counters to the relevant breaching method / S involved with it actually. When they have responses to protests, responses to other people's protests in other countries, they measure and maintain here and there how that breaching method left no place for freedom of assembly. No means to that. All identity ground locations are tactically denatured. That was forced. We must read the Native American dreams, the Native Chinese dreams, that which made the yin yang. I believe most probable and way more practical and wicked benefits to it, way more scientific. Yin yang and alpha and omega were taught together. Many pray, but wrong. Boxing is strong. In other words, faith was needed because the sciences were defended, the locations of the sciences, the locations of the religious locations, roles with that differentially criminally foreign influence, and with the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and that ensues to everyone. Because it's fluent through that. It's fluent through the grouped nations, how they're grouped, blaming other things others themselves. Especially it's easy to do it once you're at the top of the game. No matter how powerful a leader could get, they can only be forced to entertain locations, areas, and states, criminal, ceaseless natures of positive and negative treatment. I'm not a lawyer again. Lawyers again too, still originally were roles, needs, and natures that would fabricate audio and video as fronts, putting with the self-value, data reception, evidence reception, racketeering, worse than war crimes. So boxing and martial arts, boxing, a little bit of grappling, and try to get away from it. Try to get the independent. Martial arts, like mixed grappling, striking, try to get away from it. Try to get independence. Wrestling, mostly grappling, try to get away from it. Independence, try to win. There is one way to fight where even when people lose, all win. It's where and how we perfect our fact-keeping nature towards the where and how we actually value and identity were wanted and needed to be used by that which is going to make more positive unto itself because we're using its system. More that is also lasting positive unto itself, or it's going to force our value from here. Lethal IDs, force space nature transfer. Not as a God. See, God was more probable and was demonstrably an algebraic variable. It's invisible, but still discernible. For example, letter G of English. This is relative to where the invisible but still discernible is hyperfunctional, being the invisible subject and the invisible verb. And the invisible value / value progression value as a quality of diffusion, where we are automatically positive, where more positive or negative is being. We are to discern that and how there could be criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatment, as well as negative treatments. So thank you, America and world, and China, pure, native pure. Remember, once we were as one. Boxing is fun. One way. We must build this day, Olympics. So, in other words, all kinds of physical delusions, criminally foreign influence, fact-cheating nature, and racketeering methods, and identity thefts and frauds associated with the people with psychology, psychiatry, with the countries individually grouped together. So we need to have mandated law filed. Don't make sure, please, if you guys could, if I could ask you for a favor, if you could, so I could finish speaking about the Olympics. I can't do it because there's more people then and now interbranch from Connecticut have roles with some identity thefts and with some foreign and domestic doctors of psychology, ones with badges too, real sick sons of bitches. Excuse my language. With their generations of their families involved with juxtaposed natures of abuses of each age of fact treatment nature, including juxtaposed natures of organized crime, distinct as the roles with child abuses. And it's not legitimate if any of it's mixed in. How to show this is that they've been replacing what's actually recorded audio and video over the phones. Now, a spotted family and a Pandolf family as strangers, they made with other people too. There's a town line drive. They said they have roles with that place, and there's a Delafair with the Delafair family. Also, he had roles with that place, with a probate judge involved with this, drugs and medicines crimes, even sexual crimes, and other natures of identity thefts and frauds and wire crime methods roles, and with the schools, with the people involved with this. And there's it has something to do with have our country shared. Now one has cared, correct? I'll fake respect. I'll have it wrong. Boxing is strong. But give us rest. I tell it best. Boxing and martial arts and wrestling, they share an identity. Individually grouped together. Because the sciences share an identity, individually grouped together. So these subjects, even Olympics, that's different too because it has relativity to the Republic. This is what was stolen from the Native Americans. This is what was stolen from England that I can't remember correctly. And this is what was stolen from Italy. That Italy and that Rome can't remember correctly. How to syntactically describe the past. So we have to teach about criminally foreign influence. We have to teach about criminal insidiousness natures, positive and negative treatments, identity treatment. Anyway, they can't do that defending themselves. The identities of what's going on in locations. So we have to plant simultaneously mean stacking and wage stacking. And so we can make a lot of people will make a games about this. And if it doesn't feel like games, and some people would like different things, in other words, to figure out, to organize ourselves. Okay, the species body for this day, we're going to put all these rocks over here. We're going to ship. Okay, we go to work it while we're still going to work the regular way and everything. We're going to carry this stuff, and we have all these people drive everywhere, nothing gets dropped off, nothing changes. It just gets dirtier, more polluted. Everything stays on the water. It looks nice, the surface of the water. God knows how long. Now they see all these little particles of plastic. How long, all this time free of fresh water? Gone. You know what I'm saying? That also increases space and makes changes in nature, everything too. Everyone can afford to go real deep, clean out old ponds and make them deeper, put in what could live down there, evolve deep, wide, vast. What causes evolution's fruits against those nooks where everything just comes together with that synergy, that hyper synergy. That makes paradise. That made really what left all the types of seeds and things that you can't even just go out and plant regular. Now you have to get certain soil. Even if you make the best soil and then you put worms in it, have worms in it, it's going to be better, huh? So we don't have worms anymore. That means the birds don't have worms. Nature tells us what to do, but through positive or negative value nature progressions. Again, the hyperarchetypal criminal enterprise we have to blame causes the negative value nature progressions, acts of nature, and sustain that, so it could sustain people blaming other things, others for ourselves. We're having to respond to this fact human nature, while simultaneously having had the integrity the ancients had, that method not known and replaced. Now one have grace. Now one has grace. Obeys. The species body trained. It only feels like game. Evolution's course. I'll drop the force. Not the army rest there. Say, it is surging through all things alone, an even force, whichever course it takes. But these are not the ways. So, there are three ways it wants us to discern. So to describe syntactically how it is invisible but still discernible. And one of those where and how it is valued. I mean, the value of the other two, also bound. That is also simultaneously to show how value, to teach about and answer about why and how value and identity has a relationship to positive and negative simultaneously. The simultaneous and the hyper-simultaneous begin and stay. What leads as a scientific value /S of all answers. It already is present everywhere. We have to understand how the ground, like, I think we put up if we help Northern Africa put up a mountain, then the water stream and the river will come in Africa, and it's not populated now. Like, you know what I mean? Excuse me. In other words, it's just anyone who needs to have leverage that already knows each other and would help each other if they help each other, Even if, in other words, if they help other people that would help, then perfectly, we'll do whatever we have to make not just agreements for peace, not some same pseudo peace, to make what only feels like games is evolution. Positive value nature, progression, action nature's means out of nowhere. And evolution science does not work without the ground. So they have the word environment, a part of the syntax nature of thank God for people that counter environmental damages. They're just doing damage control. But simultaneously, when they defend themselves, all identities of sophistication are being haven't been employed. You use remotely already. This is what leaders don't know how to explain, how it comes distinctly from everyone else and groups. It teaches that way, shows us that way too. Thank you.